I'm Adrian Seet, and you are watching Nightline. News making the headlines. Industry players describe 2023 budget realistic and achievable. Also, deferment of payment for PTPT and borrowers to be implemented soon. Thanks for joining us. The Malaysian Employers Federation, MEF, calls the 2023 budget a realistic and achievable one. It also hopes that all stakeholders learn and hear the Prime Minister's message loud and clear in the urgency of implementation and seeking the targeted results.
MEF is supportive of the Perdana Menteri's efforts to uplift the standard of living of the rakyat, especially those hardcore poor, and also to improve the ecosystem for micro and small enterprises to operate more effectively. MEF welcomes the 2% reduction for income tax where they have taxable income of 35,000 to 100,000. However, MEF hopes that this particular reduction can be extended to all taxpayers. The 50 million grant given to plantation companies, especially the smaller ones, to adopt digitalization and automation will encourage more locals to be employed within the sector and thereby reducing reliance on foreign workers. Streamlining business processes through the implementation of digitalization and automation is also very critical, as this will basically be able to improve the businesses operating in Malaysia. The efforts taken by the government to address the issues of cost of living faced by the rakyat is very critical, especially those in the B40 and M40 category.
For the Malaysian International Chamber of Commerce and Industry, MICCI, it is certainly a rakyat-centric budget, and that is to overcome global economic uncertainties affecting the ordinary people.
We see the reallocation of resources and subsidies from the affluent to the more needed segments. The rural, transport, digital development are some of the infrastructure reforms that we see for a sustainable, transformed economy. Perhaps due to the robust economic indicators as announced by Bank Negara, other than the E&E, tourism sectors, perhaps attention to foreign and domestic investment is left to budget 2024. And we are looking forward to seeing that in 2024.
The nation needs to regain lost ground and remain relevant in a fast-changing global environment, and thus the need for reforms to happen.
We are also very happy that the government took cognizance of our numerous recommendations on governance, that they have taken the first steps of institutional reforms by retabling the Government Procurement Act and the activation of government agencies to address illicit smuggling that deprives the country of most valuable tax resources. Therefore, we maintain our utmost.
On the cancellation of directly negotiated projects, the Federation of Malaysian Business Associations, FMBA, in welcoming the 2023 budget, said it is a good way to reduce leakages.
We believe that the government has given a lot of emphasis on tender process. If the tender process is scrutinized in a more rigid and proper way, we believe that we can get more done with less money. Number two, on the Bankruptcy Act, we are very happy with the Malaysia Madani concept, whereby the entrepreneurs will be given a second chance. For people who owe 50,000 and below, automatically will get a discharge by 1st of March, which means that they have a second chance, because certain people become guarantors for others. And just because of one mistake, their whole life can be in jeopardy. And also regarding people who are above 70 years old, to discharge them from bankruptcy, so that at least, as they say, they can die in style, or they can die with marwah. And then we have the subsidy, which is targeted subsidy for B40 and M40, which will be continued. And the government subsidy will also, we hope that can also be given to help MSME, and banks can step in to assist.
On the other announcements in the 2023 budget, the FMBA also agreed with the Prime Minister that it would be prudent for vape products to be regulated and taxed.
On the vape tax and GEG tax, which will be channeled to KKM, I think it's an excellent move, since the funds can be used to help those in need. On the taxes, where we see the government has lowered the tax for the lower income group by 2% and increased the tax for those earning above 100,000 by 2%. On the 50 million allocation given to the agriculture industry for innovation, for automation and AI, we welcome that move. And also on OKU, we feel that the government has not left out the OKU, and special allocation has been given to OKU. And the increase of budget for HRD Corp 1 billion is an excellent move, because we need to upskill and reskill our workers.
The tourism industry, on the other hand, said that with a weak ringgit and higher costs, the 250 million ringgit allocated in the 2023 budget is not sufficient. The Malaysian Association of Tour and Travel Agents, MATA, said the sum is hardly enough to support industry players who are still recovering from the effects of the pandemic. Nevertheless, its president, Datuk Tan Kok Leang, enlisted the focus areas for the 20 million ringgit allocation.
The Visit Malaysia promotional activities should include digital promotions, overseas physical trade shows, business matching with overseas operators, incentives and subsidies to local companies for overseas promotions, incentives for overseas operators to bring in tourists into Malaysia, hosting of media influencers to promote Malaysia, hosting also of industry familiarization trips for key overseas operators and their staff, and rebranding of tourism flyers and brochures, and not forgetting to upgrade our tourism products, infrastructure, and our Malaysian hospitality.
The deferment of payment and discounts for National Higher Education Fund Corporation, PTPT, and borrowers announced in the Budget 2023 will be implemented soon. PTPTN said the initiative showed the government's concern for the public in this challenging economic situation and hopes to ease the financial burden of the affected borrowers. In a post on its social media on Saturday, PTPTN said the agency was appreciative and committed towards the initiative to implement a repayment discount of up to 20% for 3 months beginning March the 1st. The agency also welcomed the initiative to defer repayment for borrowers who earn a monthly income of 1,800 ringgit and below for a period of 6 months. PTPTN was committed and prepared to offer assistance to borrowers, which is in line with the government's initiative announced in the 2023 budget. For inquiries, borrowers can visit the PTPTN official portal or contact its care line. A bill related to contract governance will be tabled in Parliament as a guide for procedures and procurement and award of contracts. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said the proposed bill was an extension of the existing Treasury governance and regulation. He said that this is important to avoid leakages, abuse of power, and also to provide guidelines and not for the specifications of a service, product or work, but from the aspect of price and time frame and the quality of services or goods supplied. Datuk Sri Zahid also stressed that the enactment of the law was crucial to curb leakages due to corruption, excessive profits or other things that caused the people to be burdened due to non-compliance with the set governance. He stated that for now it only exists in the form of an instruction from the Treasury, and once it was enacted, all governance and management will be bound by the law, in which if there were elements of violation, leakage and abuse of power, the offenders will be punished according to the law. The The Health Ministry will utilise 36.3 billion ringgit allocated received through the 2023 budget by prioritising the upgrading of health facilities nationwide, especially those over 50 years old. Its Minister, Dr. Zaliha Mustafa, said her ministry had identified 1,200 health clinics categorised as dilapidated or affected by the high operational burden during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Naik taraf itu penting sebab kita ada sebenarnya yang klinik-klinik yang berusia lebih 50 tahun itu memang banyak kita ada. Jadi yang itu kita akan bagi keutamaan sama ada dia di luar bandar atau dia di mungkin persekitaran yang berhampiran dipanggil semi-urban pun ada juga sebenarnya klinik daif. Tapi as I said lah, kita akan bagi keutamaan dan kita akan lihat secara terperinci lah satu persatu.
Dr. Zaliha spoke to the media after the handing over of the Segamat Hospital new building project in Johor on Saturday. She also described the overall allocation for the ministry under the 2023 budget as a very positive start towards increasing the health sector budget to 5% of the gross domestic product. Regarding the allocation for new permanent and contract positions for more than 1,500 medical officers, dental officers and pharmacists, she stated that her ministry would hold discussions with the Public Services Commission about the placement of its staff. When tabling the 2023 budget on Friday, Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim announced that the health sector received the second highest allocation with 36.3 billion ringgit compared to 32.4 billion ringgit last year. The Home Ministry has approved the applications of 380,000 foreign workers under a plan to facilitate the hiring of workers to meet the country's economic needs. Its Minister, Dato Sri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail, said his ministry implemented the plan based on Bank Negara's recommendation to ease the conditions for hiring foreign workers.
Kita sudah mencatatkan sehingga 380,000 kelulusan. Bukan kemasukan sebenar, kelulusan lain. Dia kena bayar levy, dia kena buat pemeriksaan kesihatan, dia kena dapatkan single entry visa, itu prosesnya. Yang kita lulus setakat ini 380,000 dan yang sudah pun masuk sekarang ini sekitar 123,000.
Dato Sri Saifuddin said this to the media after visiting the Padang Besar ICQS complex in Perlis on Saturday. He also stated that this relaxation is given in several critical sectors like plantation, agriculture, manufacturing and services. He added that under the first phase of the plan, industry players needed to hire up to 518,000 foreign workers. The minister noted that this was important for the country's economy, which is expected to grow at 4.5%, as stated in Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim's 2023 budget speech on Friday. The Pulau Pinang government has promised to give its full cooperation by extending all the resources required by Malaysia Airports Holdings Berhad, MAHB, to implement the state's international airport expansion project. Chief Minister Chow Kon Yeow said he had asked all state government agencies, especially the District and Land Office, to facilitate the project implementation.
Sebenarnya kita tahu MAHB sudah ada persiapan advance sejak tahun 2018 lagi. Sebenarnya kebenaran merancang mereka pun diluluskan. Tapi kita akan dengan pengumuman ini, pasukan kerajaan negeri akan perlu memberi input dan kerjasama kepada MAHB dalam melaksanakan projek ini, termasuk pengambilan tanah, relocation of quarters kerajaan khususnya JKR dan lain-lain kemudahan yang berkaitan dengan airport.
Speaking after an event in Nibong Tebal, Chow said the state government would also bid for several infrastructure projects not listed under the 2023 budget for implementation under the 12th Malaysia Plan Rolling Plan, which runs until the end of this year. He added that state government departments had been asked to do follow-up checks with the ministers concerned for these projects to be listed in next year's budget. When we come back, Philippines marks first People Power anniversary under Marcos Jr. Stay with us. On to the foreign front. The Philippines on Saturday marked the 37th anniversary of the People Power Revolution that ended the two-decade rule of the late President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., father and namesake of the incumbent leader. In memory of the brutal era, hundreds of protesters, including survivors of the elder Marcos's martial law crackdown that led to the killing, torture and imprisonment of thousands of political foes and critics, marched on the People Power Monument in Manila. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., in the meantime, has called for reconciliation and unity on the 37th anniversary that toppled his dictator father, urging those with different political persuasions to come together as one in forging a better society. The rally was the first commemoration of the uprising since Marcos Jr. took office in June 2022. He had previously praised his father's 20-year regime, which critics describe as a dark period of human rights abuses and corruption that left the country impoverished. Meanwhile, the Philippines Central Bank will likely raise interest rates one more time this year, and this could happen at its next monetary policy meeting in March, most likely by 25 basis points. In announcing the matter, its governor, Felipe Medina, said inflation running at 14-year high of 8.7% in January has been a concern for the country's central bank. However, if the Consumer Price Index CPI is negative in February on a month-on-month basis, he stated that there would be no need for a rate hike. Previously, the central bank raised its benchmark interest rate by 50 basis points on February 16th at its first rate-setting meeting this year. The monetary authorities, which have raised rates 8 times to a total of 400 basis points since last year, are due to next meet on March 23rd. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is expected to announce a deal to end the protracted row over the post-Brexit Northern Ireland Protocol as soon as Monday, a deal that would overhaul post-Brexit arrangements in Northern Ireland. The deal may trigger a fresh battle with pro-Brexit Conservative backbenchers in the European Research Group, ERG, and the Democratic Unionist Party, DUP. Number 10 Downing Street hopes it will also pave the way for the re-establishment of an assembly in Stormont, given power sharing has been suspended since the DUP's first minister resigned over the protocol in February 2022. MPs have been put on a 3-line whip to attend Parliament on Monday, and cabinet ministers are braced for a potential conference call over the weekend. The move would come after 4 months of intense negotiations and mark an end to a 2-year standoff with the EU. Nigeria's presidential election was marked by long delays at some polling stations on Saturday that did not deter large crowds of voters hoping for a reset after years of worsening violence and hardship under outgoing President Muhammadu Buhari. The main contenders to succeed Buhari are former Lagos Governor Buletin, 70, of the ruling All Progressive Congress, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, 76, of the main opposition People's Democratic Party, and former Anambra State Governor Peter Obi, 61, of the smaller Labour Party. For the first time since the end of military rule in 1999, a third serious candidate has emerged to challenge the dominance of the two leading parties. Nearly 90 million people are eligible to vote, with many Nigerians saying they hoped the new leader of Africa's most populous democracy would tackle the security crisis, sluggish economy, and widening poverty. To win, a candidate must garner a sufficient number of ballots to meet the 25% vote spread in 24 of Nigeria's 36 states. The final tally from the 36 states and federal capital, Abuja, is expected within 5 days of voting. Sports football, the 2023 Super League. 4 matches were played on Saturday night. Kelantan FC lost 1-2 to Kuching FC at home, while Sabah FC trounced PDRM FC 4-0. Kuala Lumpur City FC were held to a 2-2 draw by Penang FC. In Ipoh, Perak kicked off their campaign on a low note as they suffered a humiliating 1-4 defeat to Kedah Darul Aman FC. Still on football, the German Bundesliga. Ludovic Erjok and teenager forward Nelson Wiper scored their first goals for Mainz as it routed Borussia Mönchengladbach 4-0 to move up to 7th place in the table. nabbed for criticizing SPM history paper. This and more when Nightline returns. Welcome back. The Bakul Rahmah initiative by the Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Ministry is expected to be distributed starting this Ramadan. Its Minister, Datuk Sri Salahuddin Ayub, said that this will involve a total of 18,000 out of 37,000 hardcore poor households nationwide, who will receive a Bakul Rahmah each, containing basic necessities worth 100 ringgit. Datuk Sri Salahuddin said the initiative is not for the B40 group, but for the hardcore poor, with one of the criteria being a chronic patient, one of the husband or wife had to stop working, to look after a sick child, or having to look after an orphaned relative. He also stated that his ministry is still finalising the proposal to establish Ramadan Bazaar Rahmah in every state.
Kita akan pastikan beberapa lokasi untuk rakyat membeli belah sebelum waktu buka puasa dengan harga yang berpatutan. Ini yang telah saya sebut. Di samping dengan industri tekstil, juga minggu depan ini saya akan memuktamadkan dengan beberapa players yang akan saya umumkan apakah bentuk jualan rahmah raya yang akan mereka kemukakan.
Datuk Sri Salahuddin said this after presenting the state-level back-to-school contribution at the Taman Bukit Indah Hall in Johor on Saturday. In Selangor, police arrested 2 male teenagers to assist in an investigation into a viral video involving a high school student's dissatisfaction with the Sijil Pelajaran Malaysia SPM history exam paper. Hulu Selangor District Police Chief Superintendent Sufian Abdullah said the duo, aged 18, were detained after police received a report from a teacher on Friday. In a statement, Sufian said, acting on the information, members of the Criminal Investigation Division conducted a raid at the suspect's home and arrested the youths. Police also seized a smartphone during the raid. Both suspects tested negative for drugs, and checks revealed that they had no past records. The case is being investigated under the Minor Offences Act 1995 and the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission Act 1998. The public were also reminded to stop spreading the video that causes distress and confusion in society, leading to conflict. Police had detected the video on several social media platforms, showing the individual uttering vulgar words to express dissatisfaction with those who set the questions for that subject. The teenagers later uploaded a video apologizing for their outburst in the initial video. Almost 2,000 people took part in a light run during the annual Copenhagen Light Festival that features illuminated bridges and buildings, with light art scattered around the city, brightening up the wintry city. Let's take a look at the dazzling light display as we wrap up Nightline this time around. With that, I'm Adrian Seet. Thank you for watching, stay safe, and have a great weekend.